Hello, music fans. So now that February 2024 is over, it's time to count down my 10 favorite albums that were released in metal, rock, and prog in February 2024, starting with my number 10, which is Kyros and their album Mannequin. This is progressive pop rock. It's got a lot of this synth pop style to it, some art rock, alternative rock influences as well. My favorite song on here is Technology Killed the Kids. This is the 6th album by this English band. I heard the single Ghosts of You ahead of time. That's a fun, danceable song with sprinkles of prog in there, but it's mostly a dance pop song. I was really curious to hear their proggier stuff on the album and see if they're really progressive or more so doing like an art pop kind of thing. This album does mostly have a pop sound to it, but it's very interesting, very artsy and progressive pop. But the last two tracks I think are the most progressive. Number 9 is Steve Hackett and his album The Circus and the Nightwhale. This is progressive rock with classical influences. My favorite track on here is People of the Smoke. It's the 28th album by this legendary guitar player. He's most famous for his time in Genesis. His guitar playing on this album is great, lots of cool solos that include finger tapping, whammy bar, slides, bluesy playing, and then he has other guitar parts in the album that are soft, acoustic, sometimes even classical sounding. His vocals on the album are pretty good too, and he brings in some great guest vocalists and guest musicians as well. Check this out if you're a fan of Steve Hackett or of Genesis, or if you just like hearing great prog rock music with great guitar playing and classical music sprinkled in. Number 8 is Syncatto and their album Fiction. This is instrumental progressive metal. My favorite track on here is Now Sync, featuring AJ Minette of the Human Abstract. This is the second album by this American musical project that was formed as the solo project of the guitarist Charlie Robbins. He's a member of a great band called Artificial Language, who I really enjoy, so that's kind of what led me to follow this band. If you're a fan of Polyphia, Intervals, and Animals as Leaders, and other similar instrumental prog metal bands with a focus on guitar playing, I think you'll really like this. There's a lot of great guest features on here, like Arch Echo, Jordan Rudess of Dream Theater, and AJ Minette of the Human Abstract. Just all amazing players on here, very virtuosic people collaborating on this great instrumental progressive metal album. I don't usually love instrumental prog metal. I prefer music with vocals, but this is one where I make an exception because it's just so good. Number 7 is Borknagar with their album Fall. This is progressive black metal with folk metal, Viking metal, avant-garde metal, and neo-folk influences. Check out the song Summits for a preview of this. This is the 12th album by this Norwegian band. It's the first album of theirs that I listened to, but I've since checked out some of their older stuff. I'm working my way through their catalog because I really enjoyed this one. I heard an early single ahead of the release. I just liked it, so I put this on my list to listen to. This has a great blend of harsh vocals and clean vocals on this album. There's lots of great folk influences scattered into the main progressive black metal sound. Number 6 is Chronicles of Father Robin and their album The Songs and Tales of Airoea Book 3, subtitled Magical Chronicle Ascension. This is symphonic progressive rock with folk influences. My favorite track on here is Magical Chronicle. It's the 3rd album by this Norwegian band. Part 1 and 2 of this Songs and Tales of Airoea were both excellent, so I had every reason to believe part 3 would be as well, and it really is. It's a bit more on the folk side compared to the first 2 parts, though they all had a lot of folk influence. This part uses some more acoustic instruments, some great vocal harmonies. There's electric instruments as well in use here. Really great playing, really great songwriting. Definitely check out Chronicles of Father Robin and the Songs and Tales of Airoea Book 3. Now I should say every album on my list today I've put in my excellent tier, which is my third highest tier. Above it I have near masterpiece, and above that I have masterpiece tier. There's my number one on this list I've put in the near masterpiece tier, but the other 9 I've got in my excellent category. Next up, number 5 is Dirt Poor Robins and their album Firebird. This is a progressive rock opera kind of sound, but it's got a lot of pop, indie, alternative, post-rock influences. Check out the song To the Heights if you want to hear the catchiest, most undeniable pop song on the album. It's just so catchy and good. This is the 8th album by this American band. I heard their last album, Queen of the Night. I thought it was excellent, so I was looking forward to hearing this one too. Their last album was prog rock, but it had this show tunes and musical theater vibe to it as well. This is a good band for fans of The Deer Hunter. I think those fans will like this because it's got that similar theatrical vibe to it. This album is like the last one, but it has more 80s pop influence. It has more intense guitar solos thrown into the progressive rock and musical theater, rock opera vibes. There's amazing vocals on here, especially the female vocals are a real standout. The male vocals are good as well. It's cool that there's a mix of the two. The opening track, Political, is amazing. Fever Dream and Beauty Will Save the World are amazing as well. To the Heights is probably my favorite song on the album, just because it's so catchy and undeniable. It's pretty much a pop song, but if every pop song sounded like this, I would listen to pop radio all the time. There's great guitar solos in most of these songs. To the Heights reminds me of a Muse song, Exopolitics, from their album Black Holes and Revelations. Just kind of the groove and bass line and synth feel and beat. It just feels like a Muse song. The only complaint I can think of about this album is I feel like the first half of the album is a bit stronger than the second half. But that 3-song run of Fever Dream, Beauty Will Save the World, and To the Heights is just a truly amazing 3-song run in the first half of the album. So check out Dirt Poor Robins and Firebird. Number 4 is Utopia with their album Shame. This is progressive metal with mathcore and technical death metal influences. Check out the song, the title track, Shame, for a preview of this. This is the second album by this band from the UK, and I love their debut album, Stalker, from 2021. I think it's a criminally underrated album. It was in my top 20 of the year at the time. I don't think this second album is quite as good as the first, but it's possible it could still end up in my top 20 of the year again. If you're a fan of bands like Car Bomb, The Dillinger Escape Plan, Callous Dowboys, and Straight Reads the Line, I think you'll like this. It's got a lot of that mathcore sound to it, with intense and chaotic brutality and dissonance, with a lot of screen vocals, but also some nice melodic moments with clean vocals occasionally. This is definitely not an album for those just starting to get into extreme music. It might be too intense. But if you like mathcore already, you're going to love this. Now, number 3 and number 2 are both EPs, and usually they don't feature as highly in my list, but these are 2 exceptional EPs. So number 3 is Persefone and their EP called Lingua Ignota Part 1. This is progressive death metal. Check out the track One World for a preview. This band is from Andorra. I love everything they've done. I was really looking forward to this. They just got a new vocalist, Daniel, so I was looking forward to seeing what he brings to the band. I love the song One Word. I love the guitar solo in The Equable. The opening track, Sounds of Vessels, is a perfect suspense-building intro. And the last track, Abyssal Communication, is a softer song that's a nice palate cleanser after hearing the 3 previous songs just blast you with brutality and intensity, but also some melodic parts too. Number 2 is an EP called Toehider by the band Toehider. This is progressive rock with some metal influences, and it's just one track, one 19-minute epic prog track. It's really too bad it's just an EP. I think if he did a full-length album with 2 or 3 epics of this caliber, it could be an album of the year contender. Out of all the EPs in Michael Mills' 12 EPs in 12 months project that he's been doing under this Toehider name, this is my favorite so far, and it's the one that reminds me most of my favorite album by Toehider, which is I Have Little to No Memory of These Memories from 2022, which won my album of the year in 2022. This is the best EP I've heard in years, probably since Thank You Scientists Plague Accommodations from 2021. And number 1 is Ihsahn and his self-titled album. This is progressive cinematic black metal with classical and symphonic influences. My favorite track is Blood Trails to Love. And this was probably my most anticipated album of February as well. It's the 8th album by Ihsahn, the frontman of the classic Norwegian black metal band Emperor. He released 2 versions of this album. One is a progressive black metal version, and one is an orchestral version without vocals. The progressive black metal version also features orchestral sounds in the background, so I wonder if maybe the orchestral version is something he put together to play as a backing track behind his band for live shows, and then he thought it sounded cool to listen to the orchestrations on their own. I'm not sure if that's what's happened, but that's just a theory. He has a unique and boundary-pushing style, but the most similar artists I can think of to Ihsahn are, of course, his band Emperor, as well as Enslaved, who are also from Norway, and Xanthocroid, who are another cinematic black metal band. Check this out if you're a fan of any of those artists. Blood Trails to Love has a catchy hook. You'll hear quite a few catchy melodic hooks on this album, in between those harsh black metal shrieks. I likely won't return to the orchestral version as much, even though it's great, as it's more of a bonus instrumental orchestral version of the album, but it's cool to have if you just want to listen to it with that more cinematic vibe, or if you want to play this great music to people who dislike black metal vocals, if they just want to appreciate the harmonies and the composition and the arrangements. I think the orchestral version could be good for those people. My favorite tracks after a couple listens were Blood Trails to Love, Hubris and Blue Devils, and At the Heart of All Things Broken. And that's it for my 10 favorite albums of February 2024. Let me know what your favorites of the month were down below in the comments, and what do you think of these albums? Have you heard all these? Did my review lead you to check any of them out? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know what you think. Hit that subscribe button if you want to stay in the loop on my future videos. I'll post a video like this every month, and roughly weekly I post my thoughts and first impressions on new albums that I listened to that week. So stay tuned for that. Peace out.